So again, thanks everybody for coming out here today. My name's Adam with Firehouse Training and the Fire Mitigation Alliance. We are recording this session, so we will put this up on our website, the Fire Mitigation Alliance, for those who may have missed it. So without further ado, Tom, I'll have you just maybe do a brief introduction on a bit about the Fire Mitigation Alliance, who we have here with us today, and how this idea kind of came to be, not just for the Alliance, but also even for this topic today. I know we're coming into wildfire season, so Tom, take it away, my friend.
Yes, thanks, Adam. I'm Tom Hawkett. I'm the president and director of the Fire Mitigation Alliance. And you'll see on this screen, I think, where these three pictures sort of depict sort of where we're coming from as an alliance. One picture is about wildfire mitigation. The other one's about industrial fire mitigation, making sure and engaging firefighters in the education piece and to help certainly maintain the training levels of firefighters out there. Mm-hmm. And then the third picture there is really talking about the built environment and the interface between battery exposure and risks. We're seeing today needs more and more training, and we're doing more and more about that, and keeping buildings safe and businesses safe is really what that sort of other piece is about. So the next slide, please. All right. So this session, we're really talking about risk reduction around wildfire and the whole idea of early detection and how to be prepared as a business, as a community, as a firefighting group to be able to be ready to attack a fire soon so that it doesn't cause huge damage. I think our focus today is really going to be on wildfire. But I think we've got near field attack as well, because it's not always 30 kilometers away that we need to attack it. It could be right at the plant. It could be in a community, in a house. So there's a lot of getting to those fires quickly, and the sooner you get there, obviously, the better you get them out, put them out, sort of thing.
So Tom, I might just do a quick introduction of how you and I met. So I own a Firehouse Training, one of Canada's largest private fire service training companies. We also do workplace safety training as well, from fire extinguisher training to spill response. So we're based out of Toronto. I was in a business expo about 8 months ago, and I had the chance to meet Tom. Tom was wandering around on behalf of Amplicam and his current sensor technology. And we both were one of the only individuals at this business conference in the GTA that was in the fire industry. So we had a chance to chat and we discussed some different needs and gaps, not only in training, but in equipment within the fire services, as well as other emergency services. And many of you are joining us here from other services today. So after some brief discussions, Tom had a great idea about possibly teaming up along with some other industry partners that we both had relationships with to put together this Fire Mitigation Alliance. So what kind of spouted you, Tom, when it came to piecing all of these puzzles together with our current partners?
Well, I don't come from stopping fires as growing up doing that, except the odd bonfire. But the concept was that I ran a company called Connect for Training earlier in my life, and we played matchmaker in that space. And I really thought that there was a lot of good solutions out there, Canadian solutions specifically here, that needed to get out to the market. And I saw the ability to tell a story that was combined the power of many as opposed to sort of one power of one. So that's sort of where Adam and I have sort of evolved in the last 5 or 6 months. And you'll see on the screen now there's about 5-6 companies that are what I would call our strategic partners at this point. And we're looking for more, obviously, that are sort of non-competitive and complementary to this, solving the problem of fire mitigation in general. So I guess I'll just sort of go through this, introduce the high level who these players are and how they relate to today's topic. Amplicam is the company I also represent as vice president of sales. Why I originally came to this party, because it's about wildfire mitigation, early detection, and we're going to talk more about that as we go forward. Fire Rain is a eco gel retard product that is eco-friendly when it comes to retarding fires early and fast, or preventative side of things. You're going to hear from them. They're going to be talking about how they relate to wildfire mitigation. You've heard from Adam with Firehouse training and his great training abilities and team that he's got from everything. They train everything from battery and hazardous materials to the basics of getting a volunteer firefighter certified sort of thing. So, and Dust2Solve is
they utilize AI and ChatGPT technology to develop training scenarios from current NFPA standards. So for example, Justin, he might be here in a little bit, the owner of Dust2Solve, they will take current NFPA standards as well as my training content, for example, for an electric vehicle and lithium-ion battery firefighting class, and they will put together scenarios that ensure that you're following provincial and federal guidelines for appropriate training tactics based on standards. So it's not like we're finding something on Google and saying, hey, this is how you put the wet stuff on the red stuff. It will develop a scenario so that when a student puts together a case study or we do a training event, everything that they need to do will be based on the NFPA standard, Ministry of Labor, or other standards that are put into this AI technology. So it's really helped me develop training scenarios, and hopefully Justin will pop on here in a little bit.
Exactly. And then we've got Brent Sterling, who can't make it. He's up in Nunavik this today, doing some training and consulting up way north of the in the Arctic. The company Wasane Consulting is 100% owned and operated First Nations business, and he offers community risk assessment and master fire plans and woodland for interface assessments, fire training, and all hazardous emergency management risk assessments. So it fits in with what Chris Snider is going to talk about about the whole assessment side of things. And he's been doing a lot of that work up in northern communities, and because of his Indigenous background, he works really well with all Indigenous groups, and he travels north quite regularly. So anyways, he couldn't make it today because there's limited internet up there for him right now. He's also done some great mentoring in the far north with Indigenous firefighting departments with his regular job. He's a firefighter out of Aurelia. So, okay.
No, that's good. So again, today we're going to have a bit of everything. Okay, I got a handful of slides here, a couple of slides on just basic challenges for wildfires to get things rolling. Again, I know we have Sven Hebbard here and a few others. If you have served in a wildland capacity, please speak up, share a few stories. Peter Sells, of course, is going to speak on his EcoGel product. We also have Chris Snider here and Reagan as well. So as we get to the different aspects of today's training, we try at the Wildfire Mitigation Alliance, to try to provide a larger view than just putting the wet stuff on the hot stuff. Everyone here in this group today, even you as attendees, all bring a certain element of experience to the table and perspectives. So get involved, ask questions, and we'll go from there. So again, when it comes to wildfire risks and challenges, you look at what's happened in California. You look at what's happened in Hawaii last year, or the year before. You look at what's happening in New York State. Even in these urban areas, we are seeing some challenges. Fire spread influenced by proximity of vegetation and buildings. It can be spread in many different ways, either urban or in rural settings. Access issues for firefighting vehicles is an issue. The evacuation difficulties for residents. When I went and did some training up in Yellowknife years ago, I heard horror stories of families running out of gas on the side of the road, or 3 to 4 hour lineups at gas stations between Yellowknife and the next community just to pass through to make it to a safer locale. The unpredictable weather conditions like strong winds in defensible space. Sven Hebbard, I might put you on the spot, my friend. When it comes to risks and different things you've seen, what are some things that stick out to you in your wildland experience?
Risks for the public, or you want a risk for the fire department, or?
A bit of both, actually. Bit of both. What kind of comes to mind?
Risks for the fire department. Biggest thing that we always had to be cognizant of, the biggest thing is people will push evacuating till the last minute.
Yes.
And then when you're trying to come in with resources, you are almost running over people or running over vehicles. How you said people running out of fuel, that was when I went, I got hot shotted up to Hay River in the Northwest Territories. I think I came across a dozen vehicles on the side of the highway in the middle of nowhere, out of fuel, and they're just stranded on the side of the road. So that's a big thing for us. But I'd say the evacuation, not having communities not having plans in place and doing a last minute evacuation causes a lot of grief for the fire departments.
And Sven, you're right. When you look at fire behavior, factors affecting the fire behavior, wind, slope, fuel, different spot fires, that fire spread, you know that sometimes it might not seem like that danger is imminent. And then all of a sudden you're put in a situation where you have to evacuate or have some type of structural defense system. Here on the slide, you can see, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Sven, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right there, Adam. Prime example is in 2023 in the Parkland County fires there. We were battling a 400 hectare fire. The winds picked up on us and shifted to the northwest, and we blew from 400 hectares, and in 5 hours we had over 4,000 hectares. So we were doing about, I think we had most of our apparatuses, we were doing 85 mile an hour down the highway to try and get ahead of the fire to start evacuating people, and we couldn't outrun the fire. And we're doing 85 mile an hour down the highway in apparatuses.
Yeah, you see this in real time. It's a serious threat. And when you look at the defensible space that you need, clearing of vegetation around structures, your emergency water supplies, this slide here is an overview of not just for firefighters, but what we need as civilians and homeowners, from emergency power supply to even home sprinkler systems, exterior home sprinkler systems that can either be set up by the fire department or yourself. When it comes to these defense mechanisms, Sven, I mean, you can be honest here. What are some things that you have seen that work and don't work when you see a couple of these items here up on the screen?
So the sprinkler systems, as crazy it is, they do work. You got your wasps, you got your bees, you got your ground turrets. They actually do a great impact. The negative fact is they run on porta tanks or porta ponds, drop tanks, bladders, whatever you wish to call them. So you got a limited supply of water. They're not, unless you get source fed. A big thing that works actually quite good that we've used is FireSmart. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. It's quite popular in the West here. FireSmarting is very big, very, very, very large. You can get grants to FireSmart communities out here, and it actually lowers insurance. Your insurances on your properties. So sprinklers I've been involved with. FireSmarting does do quite a bit, but again, fire can jump almost. We saw it in Fort McMurray. I saw someone just commented there. Fire will jump a quarter mile with heat and sparks. Basically, you can have a quarter mile jump. So 30 feet, 100 feet around your house. That doesn't stop shingles having build up in your eaves troughs. There's been lots of crazy things that you don't expect to catch fire, and all of a sudden they're catching fire.
Yeah, that's you make a comment of out in Alberta. You've seen a lot of things. Do you get a sense that Fort McMurray? Well, when I learned about Fort McMurray, there wasn't a lot of preparation in advance, and there's a lot of denial going into it. But as it was happening, it was sort of in denial. Are we getting better at that as we progress now? Because Fort McMurray's been on a bunch of years from back now. Are communities and businesses more ready, or are they when you show up?
So Fort McMurray did catch everyone. Catch them with they played a hand of cards that no one had seen before. I would say. No one had seen that really before. People are getting better and more basically knowing that there's improvement to be had, and people are improving, and that you can see it through different fires. Alberta has WUI teams. Right now they have 2. We're implementing 4 more, bumping it up to 6. We have WUI training, so Wildland Urban Interface training for most fire departments you can attend now. And that teaches you how to sprinkler houses, how to get your SPU trailers going, and things like that. So there are improvements, and it is recognizable through the fires that have happened, going from 2015 and then going to the high levels, and then coming up to 2022, 2023, 2024. There's already been almost an evacuation here in Alberta, just outside of the county that I'm full-time in, for fire. So fire season's already kicked off here. We're already going.
Right, right. And are you seeing, and anybody that's from like northwestern Ontario, are we seeing WOWI discussions at all in that world? Or if there's, I think there's some people from Sudbury area as well, but I think mostly Western Ontario. Is WOWI a discussion you guys get into and have access to some of the reports that I've seen out of Alberta? Yeah, anyone who can pipe in, please do.
I'm in northwestern Ontario. I haven't seen any of that information. So
Okay. Yeah, because they've been in BC and Alberta, the WUI reports, like Gunny had sent me a report a couple of about a month or two ago. It was quite detailed about action plans and processes and all those things in the wildland urban interface, how to protect and get ready and respond, really.
Yeah, we actually, Alberta's developed, we have a WUI handbook, like it's a small little flip book, same thing that forestry has, but it's for WUI. And it'll tell you everything from the type of engines you have, type 6 or whatever, all the way down to, you know, how much water you need, what your sprinklers take. It helps someone that knows nothing go right up. But the WUI program definitely helps firefighters with learning how to sprinkler houses, how to do fire smarting, mitigation. Like you might just be tasked with, I remember my first deployment, we were tasked with, there's old ant whistle. Here's about 20 firefighters, go fire smart it and sprinkler it. You have about 3 hours before the fire hits you.
Yeah, and you can ask me for that document. I assume I can share to anybody ask me. It's like a 20-page document that I can get out to anybody.
Oh yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reagan Breeze. I am the social emergency manager and emergency management coordinator based out of Northwestern Ontario, representing Paa-widigong First Nations Forum. My job is as an emergency management coordinator for our First Nations communities, but also have an extensive background with the Ministry of Natural Resources for 20 some odd years. Our communities are all implemented with a community wildfire protection plan. So municipality, unorganized townships, our First Nations communities, it is a living document. We have to revise it once a year, kind of like our master emergency response plans. The Ministry of Natural Resources as well also has implemented the IOP and the MIOP, which is an industry protocols that the forestry industry in Northwestern Ontario have to, it regulates them if they could have chains on their equipment, chains off. They have to abide, they have to have their suppression equipment nearby. They also are inspected through the Ministry of Natural Resources to make sure that they are compliant. I just wanted to bring that to the forefront.
No, great. Thanks, Regan. No, and you're going to talk later, and thank you. You've introduced yourself nicely. Anyone else from outside in that world there in northwestern northern Ontario about the what plans that you guys have in place?
I know we got Anthony here from Alberta. Anthony Punko. He put a couple mentions in the chat. Yeah. Anthony, are you there, my friend? What do you want to add on what you've seen in Alberta, either the evacuation, rescue, and just overall wildland response, my friend?
Well, 2016 definitely kind of caught us off guard. In some ways the resources were there, but they were reluctant in bringing them out. And I think if that happened, I think we might have got a little better handle on the fire, a little less damage. But compared from 2016 and the way that we kind of deployed and managed everything compared to the fires in the spring of 2024, we were definitely learned a lot and we're a little more proactive in getting resources implemented and put out in certain places. Still some work left to take and do in regards to using the resources available instead of having them sitting there and waiting. But I think we learned a lot again from the 2024 fires in regards to the way that the burned out area was reacting because some of the fire got back into that area. So again, the wildland units learned a lot from that as well. But we have come a long way and I still see progress going on in regards to trying to get ahead of the fires and kind of managing them before they become a big problem.
We can't stop them from starting, really, but we can
No.
stop them from raging so they become a Jasper or a Los Angeles issue. That's the whole idea. And we talk about wind, and wind is a big variable. I mean, all those things. So
Yeah, and as far as I know, in 2024, like we ended up evacuating part of the city, the southern part of the city. And from what I understand and heard is that we did have some insurance companies that now provide that service in their policies where they'll send a group of people in, they'll come and fire smart your yard. And I believe they sprayed some sort of retardant, but I'm not sure what it was. And I think they could have done a lot better job from the feedback that I heard from some people that supposedly had this done in their yard. It wasn't the best, especially when people have a lot of security cameras around their yards or doorbell cameras, and they can see what the workers are doing. So I guess the companies have to be a little bit mindful of handling other people's property.
Interesting.
Cool. Well, thank you. Okay, so I think let's move on to Chris Snider. So Chris Snider has been in the insurance industry for 26 years, working for 3 major insurance companies, including ING, Zurich, and now with Aviva. Back in 2010, Chris started concentrating on business resilience risk, easy for me to say, including business interpretation and interruption, supply chain, and the interdependencies, with a focus on political events and severe weather events while interpreting the business revenues. Anyways, he's written 4 bulletins now, or issues for the ICLR, which is the Institute of Catastrophic Loss Reduction. And he introduced climate risk and resilience to the ICLR members, which is the insurance industry. All the big insurance players are members of that association or institute. And most current paper, he discussed risk assessment and the digital solutions that are helping that, which we've actually posted on our website. You can get to that report, which is about really understanding the risks. And Chris is going to explain that. It's a 12-page report, and he's going to summarize it in his talk here.
Yeah, so essentially I've been in the insurance risk industry for 26 years. Whether you're familiar with it or not, the major insurance companies and brokerages actually have risk engineers that they have on staff that go out and visit various customers or prospective customers to understand the risks that are posed for their locations. That information comes back, and that helps build out the insurance program. So there's obviously a lot of learning, and there's a lot of details related to not just fire risk, but also to other types of natural hazards, severe weather events, and you can go down to product liability, and you can go down into different areas of insurance. So what I'll talk about today is a little bit about how the commercial insurance field fits into what could be exposed as losses from a wildfire, but also other events, and sort of give you a brief overview of how things are built out. And then I've got 4 slides. So on the last slide, we really then jump into talking about digital solutions and how to use that to help mitigate risk and understand risk. I will mention that I did put into the chat a document from 2019. It's a PERC study from Fort McMurray. That was in combination between the company I used to work with, Zurich, and the ICLR, in findings from that Fort McMurray fire. So you guys can download that. You can find it on the web. It's open source. One of the interesting things about that study is it also shows that when the fire was done and there were still properties that had not been touched by the fire, commercial properties, when they went back in to turn the power on and restart the electrical, the air handling units, the lights and whatnot. The air handling units actually sucked in soot that was found on the roof from the fire and actually caused damage to the goods that had not actually been touched by the fire, but resulted in now another insurance type of a claim. So it's, lesson learned. Let's clean that stuff up before we turn on the air handling units and bring stuff back in. Okay, so we can move to the next slide. So to try to set this up, I want to make sure that everybody has a general understanding of the insurance, the way that it works. So from a climate risk standpoint, it can impact the policy in a sense of the capacity an insurance company wants to deploy, as well as how it's layered. So when companies go to buy insurance through their broker, not every single company is going to say, hey, I'm going to put 100% of what you're asking for out there. They might be at 50% or 25%, meaning you need to have a couple of different insurance companies come together to fill that bucket for you. But they also might say, hey, I don't want to be on the first layer that is impacted by the risk. I want to be on an upper layer. So you can layer insurance policies vertically or horizontally, and it can be different portions. So you could have different insurance companies that are actually being involved with a specific type of loss. With that, it can actually have an impact on premiums as well as reinsurance. So when you have more insurance companies involved with your overall policy structure, it could end up being a little bit more expensive than if you just had one, maybe two, right? So there's obviously a cost that's in there, and each and every single insurance company's got a different perspective slightly on the risks that are out there and how they approach the risk. So it isn't a, hey, one solution fits all. You could end up getting recommendations from insurance companies to protect your risks that are different from company to company. From a reinsurance standpoint, back in the early 2000s, there was the flooding in Thailand, where they then at that point recognized that, hey, half of our small digital cards, SD cards for cameras and computers and whatnot, were manufactured out of there, and half of the market was completely interrupted because of the flooding. Prices doubled, and that was the event, kind of the tipping point for the reinsurance companies to say, hey, we're not going to offer out our capacity to the insurance companies unless we've got good risk information. So doing assessments and bringing as much risk information forward to the insurance carrier allows them to better understand the risk and allows them to put you on a different level of the scale where they start and when they calculate out the premium. Another thing that is happening with inside the insurance industry is with more severe catastrophic events. If we take a look at California, they've stopped talking about there being a fire season. It's year round now. We're going to see year round in a bunch of different places. What can happen is you can have insurance companies that are not set up or not capable of being able to handle those year round events. And basically they might actually exit the market. So they might change the structure of an insurance policy and what triggers it. They could put limitations on the type of coverage that's available, or they could exit the market altogether. Two examples of that would be flooding in Florida and wildfires for residential in California. There are companies that have just said, hey, we're not going to be renewing any policies. This is just too costly. Insurance companies are in the business of still making a profit while they're paying out claims, so they have to make sure that they balance things properly. They're the layer just right above the lawyers at the bottom of the sea, but that's okay. I can accept that as working with them. And then on the other side, the resilience piece, which we'll focus in a little bit on the remaining slides here. Natural catastrophes, severe weather events can have a dramatic impact on the ability for organizations in order to be able to bring their goods or their services to market. It can affect organizations, sister facilities. It can impact an organization where the upstream and downstream customer or supplier gets impacted. Now, if we think about mass timber is a new market that's coming forward. Insurance companies are looking at how they are going to classify the construction of that, but the raw material comes from the forest, certain types of species. What's the ability to be able to make that a renewable source of construction material? You can go to the next slide. When we're looking at the assessment process for insurance, what we're trying to do, or what we work with our customers to do, is to try to find that right balance between cost and risk, right? So there's that sweet spot in the middle, represented here in sort of that sliding scale, the green that's in that coefficient area. If you put too much money towards negating your risk, you're going to bring down the risk, but it might not be sustainable from a financial standpoint. If you remove and try to save as much money as possible, you could end up driving up the risk, and it could end up costing more. From a severe weather event, natural hazard event, depending on the actual loss, whether it's flood or windstorm or wildfire or bushfire, the recovery from a loss versus spending money on the front end to prevent a problem is a ratio anywhere between 1 to 4, 1 to 7. So the recovery is definitely costing you a lot more than it would to put protection factors in place prior to a loss ever happening. So we look and try to work with our customers to try to make sure that they find that perfect spot on spend versus risk. The downside to that is that target moves almost on a daily basis, depending on what you're exposed to. And if you start bringing in even things like geopolitical risk, it's up and down by hours. Mm-hmm. On the risk assessment process, there are tons of different types of risk assessment process that you can go through. But one of the biggest mistakes that companies, organizations make is that when they go through the assessment process and they come all the way down to the end where they are now purchasing the insurance, they don't go back up to the top. So when you're looking at your risk assessment process, you want to identify the risks that you're exposed to, and you want to sort of break them off into digestible pieces. Now, whether that's location by location or product by product, service by service across your entity, you want to break that down. And then you want to sort of go into a quantification standpoint where the typical and easy one is to put it onto a heat map, an XY axis, severity versus probability, where you've got your green, yellow, orange, red, going from bottom left to top right quadrants. And then you start focusing on the stuff that's the most hazardous to the least tolerable. And you go through that quantification process. You then want to look at avoidance. The first thing you should do is say, do I actually need to do this? Do I need to have this material? Do I need to be here? Do I need this? Do I need that? If I can live without it, then let's just get rid of it, right? Why carry on that risk? Once the risk avoidance, and you go through that step, then you begin with the reduction. And the reduction is going to have a couple of different pieces to it. You've got your mechanical risk reduction, which would be sprinkler systems, all the physical attributes that would be put in to help control losses. And then, of course, you've got what I can refer to here as the policy or the management programs, where it's more about education, training, and making sure that employees or those around know how to react and act in a loss scenario, can actually either activate quickly or prevent a loss from happening altogether. So let's use those two areas to reduce the risk. Then you get into the risk transfer piece, and the risk transfer piece, which includes insurance, but that's the last piece. The risk transfer piece is there anything I can do to transfer the risk outside of my organization and make somebody else responsible for that? That could be the customer side, or that could be the supplier side. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be exposed to losses, but what it does mean is you're transferring the financial aspect of that risk and recovering from that risk to other entities, allowing you to have more viable capital to deploy maybe some of the mechanical risk reduction pieces that are in the step before. The last thing you do is insurance. You want to eliminate as much risk as possible before you sit down and talk about insurance. And you work with your broker and say, here's what we're looking for, here's what we need to be covered. And we know that there's going to be a deductible, there's going to be assumption of value that we're going to have to cover, but we want to try to structure our policy in that way. That makes a big difference, because if you understand as an organization what is being covered or what's been reduced and what you need to handle, it allows you to plan better in your recovery, your attack on any type of event that could occur, wildfire event, and you can be more focused as opposed to just sort of trying to throw a blanket over everything and not really knowing what's going to be covered, what's not going to be covered. Again, a good example of that is when we had SARS in Canada. It was just after that where a lot of insurance companies excluded pandemics. So when we came around to COVID and everybody thought that COVID was going to be covered as a business interruption loss, they were finding out that the wording in their policy showed that it was an exclusion, and not many companies in various countries actually had coverage for their business interruption loss due to the pandemic and being forced to actually shut down by the government.
There's a question for you there, Chris, as well,
yeah.
from Anthony in the chat.
Yeah.
Are premiums looked at the density? Are premiums looking at the density of residential homes, more so how close the homes may be built to each other?
Yes. So, and that's a very good question. And the best way I can describe it, if you take a look at postal codes in Canada or zip codes in the United States and you shrink it to say the first few digits, you have a mapped out area. An insurance company, the actuaries in the beginning, but the insurance company takes a look and says, okay, here is that zone of that postal code. It's simply the easiest way to split up geographical areas through the postal code. We've got X amount of houses or X amount of insurable assets that could be in this particular zone. How many of them can I bring on as a risk and collect enough premium money to pay out for the expected losses that would happen in that exact same area? So they might come to the conclusion that we need to insure 20 houses in this zone because we expect to have a loss that could involve 2 houses, and the premium from the 20 houses allows us to pay the loss for the 2 houses. It's the same sort of aspect for auto insurance, and I'm trying to bring it down to what everybody might be buying on their own versus commercial. I'm on the east side of Toronto. I'm not in the city of Toronto. And if I have a Honda Accord, which is the most stolen vehicle in Ontario, if I have a Honda Accord being a certain price in where I am east of Toronto, if I go to Scarborough, my premium could actually double for the exact same vehicle, because it's more likely to be stolen in the GTA area versus in the Durham area. Mm-hmm. And that can actually have an impact on the insurance. So hopefully that answers the question.
Well, I think when he's asking about the density, so if you had a postal code and in, like, I live in High Park and the density is fairly high, it's different than it would be out in Lincoln, Ontario, as an example. Down near Niagara. So I guess the assumption is that it's all based on the trend lines of my neighborhood. Most houses are close together here, but they're older and they don't burn maybe as fast.
Yeah, it's the density and the expected losses, because you have buildings that are closer to each other, homes that are closer to each other. That's taken in consideration in the the base algorithms that the actuaries sort of come up with using historical data, and the ability for fire to spread. So when we're looking at wildfires in northern communities, insurance companies will understand how many, and they refer to them as risks, how many risks they can take on at what value that happen to be in an area that's exposed to wildfire, knowing the trends of wildfire losses, and being able to still pay for the loss, as well as having a profitable organization. I can honestly tell you, in the 26 years I've been doing this, when I started paying attention to natural hazard losses about halfway through that, at the end of the year, a lot of insurance companies are trying to figure out how to manage losses that have occurred in one year, but are still trickling over into the other year. And it's about when it's being reported, because that has a change on the balance of the book of business, we'll call it. So it is definitely something that's on the mind of the insurance companies and how they manage it.
Okay, so just another thing, bringing it closer to home to like if a business or a town, and let's not say large towns or cities / or super huge mining companies, an example, but the idea, what is it the CFO that needs to be involved in the discussion of, as well as the operations managers in these towns or in these companies, to really dig into the assessment of the risk and have it ready before they have the conversation, what I'm hearing with the insurance company, because you've got all the proofs and you've done your research to know where your real risks are and what things could be avoided. Sounds like what you're proposing here.
Yeah, I mean, the policies are written, company by company, but the insurance companies that are actively involved with understanding the risk will take a look at the broader picture. So in other words, if we go back to Fort McMurray, there would be involvement with the entire community to figure out what has been deployed to help protect the community as a whole, whether it's residential homes or commercial buildings. Earlier, I think, Sven, you mentioned Fire Smart. I could be wrong, but Fire Smart is definitely something that is very active in the insurance industry, where we take a look at that and see if that is being used or deployed. But yeah, they will work with communities. They will work with large organizations, or they'll work with community council to try to find a better way to either protect or to recover quickly from a loss. It's not, the insurance companies at this point actually work a lot together, simply because it's in everybody's best interest.
Right. Cool.
So lastly, just finishing off with some of the digital solutions. There are a variety of digital solutions that can be deployed to help better understand or to help recover faster or to improve your resiliency. So I've gone through a few here. And the first one is there's a company called Sphera. It was previously known as Risk Methods. It was purchased up. That's the picture in the top right. They have a digital program that uses AI. You can plot in all of the various nodes within inside your organization, and they can then monitor it real time. So as an example, when there was the potential for a strike at the Vancouver ports, their customers who would put that as a node would get notified about that well in advance, and they could then actually start preparing if the strike were to occur to be able to move, right? So they can also, they scour all the information on the web. So if we see that there is comments or stories that might be found anywhere on the web that are talking about a wildfire that's moving from one part of the province to the next, to the next, to the next, you would get notifications if you had placed one of your nodes in that area as a facility that's at risk, and it would allow you to prep in advance.
Okay.
Bentley Systems, they are an organization that works on digital twins. Digital twin is basically saying, hey, let's make a digital replica of our organization or our property or our building, and we can do a variety of different things. We can go into 3D virtual reality, but it allows us to run and operate all the what ifs that we happen to want to run without actually having to burn down the original, and lets us see kind of how things might progress from there. Again, it depends on the inputs, but it is a lot of organizations start playing around with digital twins. And then lastly, there's that early detection, and this is where with Tom got involved. Obviously, we've got the Amplican early detection system. I kind of equate this as like a smoke detector in the woods. As soon as we can see that and we can get action to it as quickly as possible, and suppress and control, that's gonna have a huge benefit. While it's going to be new for insurance companies, I can definitely see that if there's an organization that is using this type of detection to protect their area and has a coordination with the local authority that would be deployed to help suppress or extinguish that wildfire, that could have an impact on the perception of their risk being more positive than others that don't have the same technology. And then, of course, we've got the firms system. I would assume that some of you might be familiar with it. This is basically just being able to see some real-time hotspots as well as fires that are actually occurring in the North American continent, but you can also filter out into different continents if you wish. But this one is specifically designed for North America, US, Canada, Mexico.
Mm-hmm. It's satellite based.
Yes.
And that digital twin thing is what our partner Decisolve and Adam work. They do tabletop and reenactments for their clients when they're doing training. So that kind of technology to do that in a virtual world is where it's evolving to as well. So as you say, you can act it out in real time, electronic version of yourself, whatever they. Okay, great. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris, for your thoughts. We certainly see the idea of if we can save fires and the growing fires that are, when we hear $8.8 million happened in Jasper, it's like, wow, that's a lot of money that didn't need to be spent. That's a lot of money that could be spent in other things. As a group here, we're all trying to figure out how to get to fires quicker, faster, and put them out so they don't cause huge damage. All right, so we've got Reagan Breeze, who popped on earlier, social emergency manager from out of the Dryden tribal area, Dryden, Ontario area. And he's with the, I'm going to mess up this name, but Paa-widigong Fire Nations Forum is who he's with. And that represents several communities in that Dryden, Ontario area. What we're going to talk about is some of his experience from a FireSmart perspective, and he was telling me that there's a difference between the way FireSmart works in an Aboriginal environment, a community, than it does necessarily in the other communities. Regan, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. All right, so can you give us a little experience you've had around fighting fires and response and preparing your communities and response speed and all those things, how you're trying to help improve that, I guess. It's never perfected and but at the same time, you keep improving is the idea.
No, exactly. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for having me here today. Last minute, I'm also dealing with flooding issues on communities right now at the same time. So it's that time of season. Next, flooding is going to be over, and next, we're going to be into wildfire season. March is one of those things in northwestern Ontario. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with the biggest thing that we all hear about is climate change, and that has a big component that puts wildland firefighters and structural firefighters to the test because in northwestern Ontario, a lot of our structural firefighters are trained to the capacity with the basic knowledge of wildland firefighting too. I do come from extensive years of background with Ministry of Natural Resources. My position was an outreach advisor, which served half of Ontario in the Northwest region and promoting the FireSmart principles to unorganized municipalities, so forth like that in our First Nations communities. I also have extensive background still to this day as as a structural firefighter for our First Nations communities, and also belong to another department, which is urban interface more so, which is our Oxter Fire Department. So within northwestern Ontario, wildfires are something of the norm, I guess you can say, because we do deal with it on almost a yearly basis. And where you'd put some of our wildfires down in southern Ontario, or as we've seen in New York State, it'd be pandemonium. I get it 100% because it's something of an oddity. The one gentleman I was talking about, Fort Mac in 2016, I was actually there helping assist when I was with the Ministry of Natural Resources as a fire safety officer and working with the the structural protection crew from Ontario that got deployed. Fort Mac was an inspiration for the Fire Smart incentive to keep it moving. Within Canada, it was very well talked about and everything like that. And one thing that really caught everybody with the pants down, forgive me saying that, but it's the honest truth, is that when you put Fire Smart, yes, it's one of the most easy things that a homeowner can do or so forth like that. But Fort Mac also had to deal with anomaly with the winds. Now, taking perspective of the high kilometer winds that were also going against it, speaking to people that lost their homes afterwards that did the Fire Smart principles, kind of left a sour taste. And I'm saying this on behalf of my own sake, talking to these people afterwards, and they basically had the instillment that Fire Smart principle was going to protect their home. But when you throw 100-kilometer winds into any wildfire whatsoever, everything's going to be put to the test. So it left a little negative, I guess, for say. So trying to get the buy-in from the community members from basically Canada. And I also belonged to the Fire Smart Committee back in the day in Northwestern Ontario and then with Ontario. It was basically trying to engage with the community members to showcase that Fire Smart principles do work. They do not really cost a lot of money. And from what you can do with, say, spring cleaning to protecting your home, the advantageous outcomes are there for you. So my position in Paa-widigong First Nations Forum after leaving the provincial government came to the First Nations. So First Nations communities within Northwestern Ontario, we hear a lot of our communities that are being evacuated and so forth like that, because we have the Ministry of Natural Resources in Ontario, which is a huge, amazing partner that helps and serves for First Nations communities as well. But they also have their jobs we had a few years back, we had an astronomical amount of fires that happened in Northwestern Ontario. We only have so many resources that we have in Ontario, but we also have another agency, which is SIFC, which outreaches to people. Say, if you might have seen on YouTube or on the news, that we had people from South Africa that came to assist, New Zealand, Puerto Rico. Like, I worked with all these people, amazing. We had Mexicans from Mexico that came up, and we're all there to do the same goal, and that's to protect and serve the communities and nations that we're there, and they do the same thing, and we piggyback off each other. So we are always working. We never thought about actually leaving, say, our Dryden district at one time, and then all of a sudden we went into Ontario. Next, you know, we're going into another province, and the next, you know, we're going into North America. So it's a collaboration of a partnership between the two, and it's grown exponentially to where we are today. Fire Smart is an amazing, beautiful thing that we are implementing on our First Nations communities at the same time. Some of the barriers that we try to work around with our First Nations is also that a lot of taking or reducing the forest fuels we have to watch and propagate through, because it is our medicinal medicines. We also, no different than the Fire Smart principles on any other communities, is we have, once again, we have our medicinal medicines, we have our land-based teachings that we have to deal with. We also have our nesting area grounds, the food sources that we deal with, and so forth like that. So to try to put a positive spin on it, anything that we try to do as a reduction with forest fuels, we try to give back into the communities with, say, people have fireplaces for home heating. Our fire crews that we have, that we started on our First Nations communities through Paa-widigong First Nations, will also split the wood. And so it helps our elders at the same time to have that proper fuel base. So it's a win-win. But as we all know, that Rome wasn't built in a day. It does take some time to showcase to the community membership that, yeah, this does work, and it is an advantageous thing. So is there going to be barriers? Is there politics? Absolutely. Do we have a resource of people to get for our First Nations communities for wildfire or for structural fire teams. No, we do not live in the city of Toronto. Some of our community members populations are only 150 to 200. So that really reduces the, I guess you could say the retention and recruitment for our First Nations communities, but they also know the serve how well a fire smart community works, and it limits, which also helps the our Ministry of Natural Resources response teams to be able to, our wildland fire team, fire rangers, to be able to respond, which slows the fire down. So the biggest thing that we have as hurdles, and I know it's not just in Northwestern Ontario, it's North America, it's global, it's climate change, and understanding it is, I wish I was Nostradamus to be able to tell everybody, look in a crystal ball on how it's going to be the outcome. Yeah, we had 4 feet of snow in Northwestern Ontario this year. We got a slow melt going on right now, but 2 years ago, the grass was green and it just was gone. And next, you know, we're in wildfire season. We almost bypassed some flooding, and it's an anomaly that are stretching the powers that be, if it's structural wildland crews whatsoever. So I do say that Fire Smart is an amazing tool. Don't let Fort Mac be something as an anomaly. It was an anomaly that happened. Lessons learned. Being in Whistler and Jasper, being there at the same time, and BC going through a lot of their wildfire challenges. Yeah, it is challenging for government officials. Even for one that is a big supporter for us, for First Nations, is Indigenous Service Canada. Getting First Nations communities with the SP 100 wildland fire crews is an amazing thing. Getting those community members reimbursed for their time that they commit to, and then maybe establishing into contracts with the government for hiring for employment purposes and so forth like that. So there are a lot of pros and so forth set forth. So
because you guys rely on a lot of volunteer firefighters in your world, right?
That is correct. In Northwestern Ontario, a lot of our fire departments are strictly just volunteer. One person that's on here right now that I recognize is Dan Robinson. We're all mostly volunteer firefighters. Like the city of Thunder Bay has their paid crews, but on the outskirts of the city of Thunder Bay, which is 4 hours east of Dryden, they're all volunteer firefighters. So yeah, and it's a matter of our people on summer holidays, like we also have our lives to live. So do you have a full complement of people? When do you know when to stop? Like, okay, sure, every fire department wants 100 people on there, so that at least you have a competent amount of people to be able to respond. But it's the outfitting of those people. It's the training. It's having government to be able to understand from the Office of the Fire Marshal's perspective. It costs money. And in today's world, everything's penny pinching, right? So things happen. It's working around those barriers.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Reagan. And in fact, that's why Adam was up in Red Lake last weekend and doing some great training around hazardous materials and battery training, and I think the feedback was excellent. So there's just so much training needed, and I mean, Adam's prepared to come up there as often as he needs to be.
No, absolutely. And I missed you guys when we were down in Akwesasne. I apologize, but having my 2 youth structural fire team members with me was a little bit of an anomaly, and going to the States and getting through the border was another thing. And it was just like, we wanted to meet up with you guys. We really, truly did. But right now in Northwestern Ontario, we're getting ready for potential flood season and wildfire season. So lots going on. I'm sure everybody's busy.
Well, great. Thank you, Reagan. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Take care, safe.
Okay. So I'm gonna do a quick version of what Amplifcam does. We're an hour and a bit in here, so I'm gonna try to do this in about 10-15 minutes. An introduction to what Amplifcam does and how we are about wildfire mitigation. Chris mentioned that the Amplifcam solution is is like, we don't build buildings in the world without putting in a fire detection and alarm system. Why don't we sort of have to have that for in a town or a business that's located in a forested area, to be able to detect wildfire, so it can be, as it says here, avoid wildfire damage by proactively using modern AI-based systems to detect tools and control them before they rage out of control and cause catastrophic damage, as we were referring to with Chris's stuff. Okay, so basically what we're in the business of at Amplicam is bringing technology to early detect wildfire. That's the number one thing. We have two worlds. One is near field detection, and the other is far field detection. So if you go to the next page would be good. And when we talk about camera systems, the U.S. Forestry Services, this gentleman, Randy Moore, made a comment a couple of years ago that we need to really accept camera solutions as a great way to get technology in early detection. We just need to leverage it, and it's been a slow movement in this world. We see major fires every year, and not that all of them could be detected by this technology. It could be detected, but because of super high winds, will you be able to get out there before it rages? But the idea is that there's a lot of evidence out there that camera-based solutions have done the do, and certainly. If we go to the next slide, we've got a proven, the idea that being prepared and having your ducks in a row and your plans and how you're going to emergency and with your people, but also the attack strategy to be able to get to that those fires, and whether they're 10 miles an hour, 10 miles away or 20 miles away from your town, it still can come in your direction. So your firefighting group needs to be able to respond as quickly as possible. And that's really what the purpose of this presentation is about here. So the idea that we have a technology with at this moment mostly around camera-based, which is the auto detection is using AI in the camera solution that will detect the difference between a wildfire and a chimney fire. But the key that we found over the 10 years that we've had this product out there, and we've done about 3,000 forests around the world, is that human verification is still important. We don't, the auto, just because we detect something and we're pretty confident with the AI, we don't want to send firefighters out there unless we're sure. And this is where our system really kicks in to be able to further verify it once it's early detected, in a matter of minutes, be able to determine, is it real? Is it something we should go after? And what's the coordinates to go out and attack it? Whether it's going to be drive out at Route 33 and then or you're going to fly and attack it. You're going to call the provincial people and have it attacked by a plane. But that's what the technology is about. Did I hear a question? Okay. Anyways, okay, so basically our track record of the last 10 years, we've done a number of regions that we've proven that after these cameras are set up in a region like northern Alberta, let's say, we've done that size of area. And the year after we've got 300 cameras installed in a region like northern Alberta, the hectares burned and the cost of fighting goes down by 90%. And that would also mean carbon exposure as well. Obviously, these stats were before we were talking seriously about carbon and things like that. But the idea that we're able to do that at a regional level. Now, I don't have the confidence that we can convince the Alberta government or the Ontario government to do the whole northern region of a province. But I do think that my goal here today is to get towns and / communities and businesses that are feeling that they're at risk to be able to incorporate this type of technology into their world so that they can very cost effectively provide the early detection for their community to go out and put it out before it rages and hurts their business or hurts their community and costs millions of dollars, obviously. And to go back to what Chris was saying, we can also loop it back to going to the insurance company to say, look, we're on this, we're working on it, and we've reduced the risk for our town or our mine or our forestry organization that's in the middle of a forest. This is a schematic that talks about the sort of the overall, the different tools in our toolbox here, I guess. The early advanced prediction. We have technology that uses satellite to do some advanced prediction. I'm going to show you some pieces of that. Early detection with cameras and sensors. We just talked about human verification there. Then there's the notification that goes out with an email or a text message to people if they're not in the office, or it's on the screen where people are monitoring the screens about the fires in an area. And then there's a term determine how do we get to that fire, and the technology enables you to sort of like uses Google Maps and that technology to send you there. So this graph is really the holistic view of what Wildfire Guardian from Amplicam does. The top left blue one is really that camera-based detection system, and in the bottom right is the Wildfire Operations Center, where if it's one camera in one town, then you really don't need a center. But on the other hand, if you're doing northern Alberta, we would suggest you have a place with a whole bunch of screens with each region that's being covered to do that. And we've got the remote power systems. These systems can be powered solar, but we're hoping that there's companies and communities that have a tower that's above the tree line so that the power is already there. We don't need to be building a tower or adding power to it. And there's internet connectivity on that tower. And that way we can install the cameras can be installed very easily and quickly and cost effectively, certainly in this first round of getting going with things. Okay, so I mentioned far field and near field. The top above the line is far field, and when we're talking about that, that's up to 30 kilometers detection of a wildfire. So the range of a camera is about 30 kilometers on radius off a tower above the tree line. So it's line of sight, and it's going to detect the smoke that is, and it differentiates a wildfire from a chimney fire. When we talk near field, we're talking about within about 2 or 3 kilometers of a plant or a town, and it can pick up on fire, and it tends to pick up on heat and smoke. So it would say, is a car burning, or is there in a wood place, wood pellets or something, in a piles of wood pellets in a manufacturing facility, we'd be able to tell whether it's overheating and it's likely to catch fire sometime soon because there's a heat spot on the pile of wood as an example. We also have technology that's picks up sensors in that, which is the air quality. We can read into that technology. We use drones to verify and eventually very soon we're going to get to the point where we can early attack a fire with a fairly heavy payload that a drone can carry. Okay, so that's sort of the high level of that. This is an example of what we've got in Petawawa, northwest of Ottawa, where there's a tower that we've got our system installed on. We've stopped at least one fire when we installed it 2 years ago. We know of, because it's in the military forest, we don't know all that's gone on, but we do know that we stopped a fire 30 kilometers away from the tower, which was in Algonquin Park, which is, if you're not from here, the Algonquin Park is one of the largest parks in the world, basically. Anyway, so you see on this picture here the detection of smoke on the horizon and that could be 20 kilometers away, sort of thing at this point. And in the heat in the evening, we can see the pickup on the heat side of things. Okay, this shows you sort of the most accuracy is probably within 20 kilometers of the tower, but we've been known, and depending on the day, up to 35 kilometers can be picked up.
Does that answer your question, Anthony? About the range of one camera on a tower? Is that accurate there, Tom? You said about
yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but basically, we can be pretty darn confident that within 25 kilometers we're going to pick up. And when you start talking about doing a region, you overlap these radiuses by 5K. So you sort of put a camera every 20 kilometers and you're good. You're covering the whole area and the spaces in between. Okay, so the base system is about wildfire detection and investigating it quickly, getting the notifications on your phone or alarm going off in the center, the detection center, and being able to map that information. You're going to see some examples of some mapping, and make sure you get the right resources to go hit it. So you'd be able to know very quickly, oh, that's not reachable by any road. We better get something water bomber on it because it's not within that zone. Or take Route 45 out to whatever and get there, and you'd be fine. We can identify it within about 100 meters of where it is from the tower. Okay, so the routing. Here's an example. This is what we've got installed at Petawawa. It's a 2-tower scenario. So you see there's 2 screens on the right. So a small deployment, but powerful, obviously. One person can manage it, and you see some of the technology. And it's and one of the cameras is needing solar, and that keeps getting cheaper and better all the time. And that's next slide. Okay, so here you can see this is a one camera, one scenario. It's turning on a 360 a rotation every about 2 to 3 minutes, and it would pick up that fire from any distance, sort of thing. And this would be the example of a region. So say we did Sudbury or the Dryden area, we could literally have multiple towers, and they're all sort of, you see these the tails on these, they all ultimately overlap a bit, but that just means there's no small gaps in the thing that we can't hit or don't hit. See here on the left, we've got the software, which is the Wildfire Guardian. The requirements that we really just need is the camera we recommend and we sell, and the hub. Basically, $15,000 will get those 2 pieces done, and then it's a monthly yearly fee that we do, and we're looking at putting together something really cost effective for communities in Ontario and beyond. But the best and the fastest thing we can do, because we're coming up to fire season, is if you've got a tower that sits above the tree line that has power and you can get internet data to it, then it can be installed by anyone that's qualified to install a security camera, basically. So we don't even need to fly anybody out there or drive anybody out to install it. I'm sure you guys have people in your communities can do that. So it's a very cost-effective solution, and we're looking at partners to do the installation on the ground. But the calibration and the training and all that stuff really can be done mostly online, and it's pretty simple solution really for an organization. Okay, so this is where also we're heading, and it does exist now, is fire weather data. Well, this is another partner that we have, that we're being able to say what are the wind connections, what are the temperatures, the humidity factors that are coming in. These are all important, and it does feed into our Amplicam system. We can pull this type of data in, and we're going to pull in even more data as we move forward. The next slide is a risk prediction. This is another partner we're working with. And you notice on this slide, you'll see there's some light colored areas and some dark colored areas. Well, this is something that's coming off the satellite that has the ability to anticipate high risk areas of likely to catch fire type technology. So what that can do is you can make sure that, let's just use that yellow area in the middle or lighter color. If that's a no low risk area, well, we don't necessarily need to don't need a camera in that area. Whereas the dark area on the left, I believe, is the high risk area. Those are the areas we need to make sure we've got either camera and responsibility to there, because it's leaning towards that's going to be where your fires are going to come from in the next month or three. Our roadmap for where we're heading is exactly what this is. We've got the fire detection operations, the camera-based system that we've got now, been working for 10 years, lots of data, lots of happy customers all around the world. And then the fire confirmation using drones, that's where we're actively working on right now, to be able to, once we spotted a fire, we can actually send out a drone real quick and it can get pictures of it and send back for verification while the crew is coming out to fight it, sort of thing. And then further down the road, we've got the using drones to attack with a payload of water, or what we've got with fire rain, a retardant gel that would be there. And then we've got a lot of predictive solutions and using AI and satellite technology that we're developing and our partners are developing. So that's sort of where we're coming from. Certainly what makes us that Amplifcam different is the 10-year track record, really, and lots of data that we've collected with it and the feedback. We keep growing. We're not a startup. We're already a proven solution, and it's stable. So that's it. And I think now Fire Rain, I think we're ready to bring Fire Rain on. So this solution, Fire Rain, is how to protect buildings and infrastructure before and when you know a fire is coming, but also to douse it, as well as I think there's many other use cases, but I'll leave that to the expert. Is this Quincy or is it Peter? Peter, okay.
Peter's there, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Am I audible? Yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you, Peter. You're good.
Okay, great. And thanks for the little teaser, Tom, mentioning the use of EcoGel with drones, because that is something that we are working on with a couple of drone companies, actually. So essentially, I'm not sure what slides I've got here, but maybe you'll move off the title to the next one.
Yeah.
There we go. So what is our EcoGel? Well, it's a hydrogel. It's a plant-based hydrogel, and it's the first and only firefighting water additive that is non-toxic and biodegradable. Now, when we say first and only, it's because we are certified 100% bio-based by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and by UL Environment. So products that make a claim of being green, which means absolutely nothing, or environmentally friendly, which sounds like a good thing, but again, you can't quantify that. It doesn't mean anything. We are 100% bio-based. The ingredients that go into our EcoGel, if you've had a barbecue sauce or salad dressing that you bought in the store in the last 2 weeks, you've eaten almost everything that's in our EcoGel. So let's talk specifically about what we can do with respect to wildfires, brush fires, grass fires. The EcoGel is a suppressant. So it can be directly applied onto a burning fire, but it's also a short-term retardant. We say short-term because essentially, as a hydrogel, it sticks and stays in place. You can see on that photo at the bottom there that it is sticking and staying on that barn board. So by sticking and staying in place, you end up with a resilient coating on the structure, or the foliage, whatever it might be, that is 95-97% water, and will stay there as opposed to running off. If somebody's going to ask how long does it stay, I will ask them how long is a piece of string, because we will say hours to a couple of days, but it depends on temperature, sunlight, ambient humidity, wind, how firefighting is. There are very rarely exact answers. But for direct attack onto burning brush, indirect attack, protection of creation of fire breaks, and protection of structures that are in the path. This is a great option for you. Could I have the next one? There we go. When it's applied with high pressure equipment, you actually end up getting a kind of a shaving cream or a mousse kind of effect there, with a really resilient barrier, which can then be washed off with just plain water. So you get a very effective coating, and it becomes a force multiplier for the limited water that you've got in the wildland environment. Next. So this shows EcoGel being used to protect railroad assets. You see, it's in the close-up there, sticking to the railroad ties, and in the inset photo there, these are contractors working with CN that are protecting rail bridges, and that's from last summer, and very effective way of protecting. Some of those bridges are quite long in the tooth, but they're still functional. So they're made of wooden members, and the gel will stick and stay in place and help to protect them against the wildfire. Okay, next. Again, this is we also make and help to adapt spray equipment. So this is a rail unit that is going down the tracks and spraying the ties on either side, and also into the brush on either side. And then you see that the gel will stay in place. We are compatible with Bambi buckets. So instead of picking up water and dropping water, you can pick up EcoGel and make better use of the water. The main advantage being that again, the stick and stay, and with this type of technology, of course, you get really good precision. That Bambi bucket could be carried by helicopter. It could be I think the smallest Bambi bucket they make is in around 50 to 60 kgs, and there are drones that can carry that.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're using your existing equipment, your existing tactics. You're just subbing in the EcoGel instead of water or another product.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Quite effective for sure. It's and it doesn't hurt the environment, and it's like the discussion around forever chemicals and all this stuff that I think your competition has been dumping, I think.
Well, see, there's been a kind of a sea change in that the forever chemicals, the PFAS. We've been aware of that now for coming on 10 years, and the industry has tried to shift away from that into fluorine-free foams. But if you look really carefully at what's in some of those fluorine-free foams, they may not have PFAS, but that doesn't mean that they're not toxic. It also doesn't mean that they are environmentally benign. So there's been a lot of literature lately on heavy metals, heavy metal contamination in some of the runoff that's coming from some of the incumbent products. Just take that out of the equation. Use a product that is 100% bio-based.
Yep.
And there's two things you need to know. Does it work? And is it safe? It works, and it's the safest possible product. So our gel replaces conventional foams, eliminates the need for the toxic fertilizer-based retardants. I know we're short on time, so I'll keep it there. But if anybody has any questions, you've got my email in the chat there, or you can contact info@firerain.com, and somebody will get back to you.
Yeah, we can help them connect as well. So so the great idea is that from an insurance perspective, the ongoing devastation to a community is just one last thing with the gel being eco-friendly, and you don't have to be worrying about the fish and the water lands being contaminated by that anyway. So
yeah, we've had studies done by the agriculture school at the University of Guelph on the ecotoxicity of a range of products, and in every case, our EcoGel came out for marine and terrestrial ecotoxicology. It came out the best, essentially, so the fish in the stream, the roots of plants that are, base level plants, but important in the food chain and the forest and everything. You're not causing any unintended consequences to the natural order of things. Because what we're essentially doing is you're taking plant material and spraying it on plants.
Hey, Peter, somebody's asking how compatible they are with pump trucks, fire pumps, and the smaller portable units.
Very much so. One of our guiding principles in developing this was to make it plug and play. So you don't need any specialty equipment. Small portable units or truck apparatus. We work very well with your standard inline eductors. Your TFT and Elkhart and the other eductors that are out there. We also work with automatic injection systems, either the ones that you currently have, and we have our own as well. So we'll work with anybody on that. Forestry pumps, which is not my area, that's more Zach's area, because I'm a city guy. But forestry pumps, portable pumps, skid-based units, structural protection units, compatible with all of it. Does it break the water tension to absorb? No, it's a protective coating. It creates a hydrogel, and so essentially it sticks and stays in place.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, Peter. That's excellent. I say it's all part of the mix here on how we attack and prevent, and as well as provide the grow back scenario and make sure all that happens after a fire. So it's all great. Thank you.
One other notice here. So this is an example of Peter's product here in the bucket, right? So basically you utilize your eductor, right, Peter, just like you would some of your competition if you wanted to flow it through the top of that carboy?
Yeah. You could just put the dip tube of the ejector right into that, just the way you do now with whatever product you're using.
Right.
And we've got full training programs for all of that.
Excellent.
No, it's very
Yeah, no,
good.
I think it's pretty cost effective, and it's made in Canada and all those things. So there's a lot of positives there.
A couple other things here of note before we finish up, and Tom you can say some last words here. Again, with the partners that we have, the whole point of the Mitigation Alliance is to bring together some good, compliant training, but also let you know about updated technology and updated equipment that currently isn't, I guess, being promoted from various government agencies. We know that as private industry, and many of us here that come from that, we know the difference between how quickly private industry can turn when it comes to unveiling of equipment and new training methods and services compared to maybe that of government entities. You look at lithium-ion batteries, you look at the development of utilizing and moving away from foams. There's a big issue here when it comes to getting that information out as quickly as we can as we find it out. So through the Fire Mitigation Alliance, Firehouse Training, Fire Rain, and the Amplicam products, we're able to do that in forums, just like this. A couple other things that Tom and I had mentioned. We did an in-person session 2 weeks ago in Mississauga. That was more for electric vehicle and lithium-ion battery response, but not just for first responders, but stakeholders, insurance agents, property managers, politicians, things like that. We're going to plan to do another in-person session probably in May or June, typically on a weeknight at the same location in Mississauga. And Tom and I are thinking it's going to be more on the emergency management side, so emergency operations center and emergency planning for communities. So again, we can invite first responders and other industry stakeholders. So you might see that come up across Tom's LinkedIn through the Mitigation Alliance, as well as our other company social media profiles. Again, we're just trying to get everybody together to network and be able to promote and provide services and other entities that you otherwise might not have seen of beforehand. Tom, anything you'd like to say before we finish up?
Yeah, well, thank you for everyone for hanging in. It was a long seminar, but I think it seemed, I hope for everybody's perspective, it kept moving along. We do record this, and it will be up on YouTube in the next couple of days. And we've recorded already 4 of these, so there are different contents already up there on the recorded on the website Mitigation Alliance. You'll see recorded sessions. It will show up there. Also, if you know anybody that runs a corporation that's near a forest or in a forest or a town, get their CFO or their finance people to take a look at the risk management, the risk side of their organization in their town. This webinar will be of value to them. So hopefully, we were at the mining show last week, and the mining operations that are in operation saw value in it, and I think there's a few people from that ecosystem here, but there's lots that need to know this message.
For sure. Well, thanks, Tom, for putting all this together. Again, thanks to Peter, Reagan, and others that came out, Sven, and of course, our friends from the insurance industry. We appreciate this, and let's look forward to doing this again. So whether it's virtual training or in class, or even future networking opportunities from firefighter trade shows to others, we'll go from there. You had a question, Shatikila? I guess
no. Basically, I wanted to find out what are the risks or once you say you encounter a fire, once you are done everything, when you are wrapping up, what are the health risks associated with that? The fumes, in terms of fumes and chemicals, and how do you get to disinfect those type of contaminations?
It's a good question from a hazmat perspective, and Peter brought it up, whether it's the smoke and the carcinogens from the hydrogen cyanide and carbon monoxide from smoke to the heavy metals that we're now finding out, not just in the smoke, but in the foams and other fire suppression products. You look at electric vehicles right now, these metals and other products that are products of combustion are not even able to come out of our gear and our clothing properly, even after a high heat wash, even soap and water, bleach, and others. So again, with Peter's technology and the other technology that we're seeing, the best you can do is soap and water, removing your contaminated clothing. But the more studies that we see, FSRI and others down in TEEX, which is down in Texas and the university, we're seeing more information come out that in fact, the decontamination that we're currently doing with soap and water and bleach is not removing all contaminants. So that's a great question. And I think we're still going to learn more, my friend. I don't think that we're at the end of what can actually remove it. Good old soap and water works. The hotter the water, the better. But unfortunately for us in the hazmat world, we're learning more and more that is not the case. Any thoughts on that, Peter, from the contaminants and things that we're learning now for proper decontamination, even from foam, even from gels and fire?
I think you hit it right on the head. We've got to go with what the best current practices are, and we have to be prepared to adapt because we learn more all the time. We've all seen a lot of changes in protocols.
We have
from washing your properly putting your bunker gear through extractors, to on-scene decontamination anytime you've gone into smoke, to some of the adaptations from Europe where they are ahead of us on some things. And we have to be open and paying attention to the research that's going on.
Very good. Well, listen, everybody, if you have any questions, reach out to us on the website, Fire Mitigation Alliance, Firehouse Training, Fire Rain, of course, and others. And we will we'll definitely hope to see you again. And reach out if you have any other ideas on topics. We'd love to hear from them as well on anything you'd like to see in the future from us.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk to any municipal leaders that would be interested in considering the technology to protect with the Amplicam camera-based system, because most towns have at least one tower above the tree line that we can do. So
very true.
Okay, guys.
Everybody, keep safe.
Cheers,
Thank you, Tom. Thanks everybody for putting this together. We'll be in touch. Bye-bye, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers.